You are listening to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and this podcast is going to teach you all about what's happening, what the trends are, the latest news, the thought leaders, the business leaders in the cannabis industry. As this industry moves forward at a rapid pace, everyone needs to adapt. Everyone needs to change to what's going on. And we're going to bring you those guests. What are they doing to make their business successful? What are they doing to get their product out there? How are they getting exposure? How are they dealing with all the changing laws? That's what Pot.Live is going to be all about. And make sure you visit Pot.Live, download the app, go to the website, and you will see all of the digital media assets from articles, videos, podcasts, everything. The latest news and trends will all be at Pot.Live. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. This episode is sponsored by MJ.com. MJ.com, the cannabis authority, where you can find the latest news, trends, doctors, dispensaries, and delivery solutions all in one place. You can shop for your latest CBD products. You can get connected with a doctor. You can get a discount prescription card. And most important, you can educate yourself on MJ.com. The Cannabis Authority. Welcome to another episode of the Pot.Live podcast. I am your host, Lenny G, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Greg Richter. He is the co-founder of Revolution Microelectronics, and he was the first cannabis lighting industry entrepreneur to choose Thai manufacturing over China, and he's going to tell us why. Viewing the country as a hub for cannabis innovation, Mr. Richter is an expert on Thailand's cannabis industry and is in the process of becoming a Thai citizen himself. He's going to discuss what this means for Thailand and the global cannabis industry. So, Mr. Greg Richter, welcome to the show.
Hey, Len. How's it going, sir? I'm actually here in the East Coast today. I'm not in Bangkok, which is nice. We can talk, and we don't have to stay up all night to do it.
Perfect, my friend. So why don't you give us a little background on who Greg Richter is, and then we'll dive into some of the ventures you're involved in.
Well, that's actually my real name, so this is pretty easy, so we can go straight into the whole thing. I'm an engineer by trade. I was a Georgia Tech for, seems like forever, and it was a long time ago. But I'm an electrical engineer. I've built satellites and missiles and guidance systems. And if you pick up the FAA's Flight Training Handbook, Chapter 5, that's all me, and you'll see my name on the front page on Amazon for automatic controls. That's what I'm known for, building stuff that flies overhead and orbits and works for a long time. And that's what we are trying to do here with Revolution. It's like a lighting and control systems for indoor growing and greenhouses that just don't break. And that's what we're about.
And what differentiates your lighting system from some of the others on the market?
Well, first of all, ours is made in Thailand and not China, and we have, much better labor laws and environmental practices. Apple just got spanked for breaking Chinese labor laws and unpaid overtime. And if you've been there, some of it's not very pretty. Thailand is a lot greener than the U.S. We're not allowed to use things that have high volatile organic compounds. Lots of glues you're not allowed to use. And no, you can't do that. It's like California, except serious. So they keep it real nice. As far as the lights go, I build them like they're going to go on orbit. You can't fix $1 billion satellite by sending a dude up there with a fuse and a screwdriver. So we just build them crazy solid. We've got about 40,000 of our HPSs in the field, and less than 20 have ever been returned. I've got one guy, Danny Toad, who is an amazing grower in Portland, Oregon. He got 685 of our lights, and their warranty expired on them all last June. Not a single one breaks. For people who are used to, growers who are used to lights that go boom every so often, these are just great. People like them because they just don't break.
And what countries are you selling them in right now?
Oh, Lordy, just about everywhere people have money and need lights. We're selling them, of course, in Thailand, the United States, Canada, Mexico. Maxi's got them in the UK. We're selling them in Australia. We're just about anywhere, Japan now. They come with a wide array of plugs, and they'll run on 120, 208, 240, 277 right out of the box. Just plug it in and go. Makes it a little easier. It's less trouble.
Impressive, my friend. Almost as impressive as your voice, which is way better than mine. So I'm happy you're on this episode. So tell everybody.
It's like, you do the FM voice. I'll do the AM voice. That's what we're gonna do. Radio. It's just too much fun. Yeah. I've actually got my ham radio set up right here, but I don't have a microphone on it. I've got my Vibraplex Morse code key because it's old school and it's cool. It's like a steampunk radio. It's kind of fun.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So, Greg, tell us before we forget, how can people find out more about your company? What is the website? How can they get in touch with your team if they're interested in your product?
Yeah, it's pretty easy stuff. Our AVICI light, AVICI. Just type in AVICI LED and pow, it brings up like 4 pages on Google. Hey, we like this. Yay, fun. Or just go to Rev Micro, R-E-V, revmicro.com, or type in Revolution Micro Light, LED, grow stuff. Any of that stuff works. But revmicro.com, we're pretty easy to find.
Excellent. All right. So let's go back a little bit. So tell everybody, we've all had crazy journeys in this industry, no matter what end of it you're in. Tell somebody a funny or interesting story on the journey that happened to you since you started.
Oh, man. Where can we go with that one?
Don't worry. There's no filter on this show. You can say whatever you'd like.
Is that right? Okay, we'll have to push that to the absolute shaking limits. But there's been a lot of really, really crazy stuff. We've had guys do some fun things with installation. It's like, how close can you put them to the ceiling? Say, well, they're very low profile, 6 inches is enough. And I've had guys cut holes in the ceiling and beam them down through it. And it's like, it's a kind of a crazy way to do lighting. And lots of fun. My most fun story, I'd say, was actually a buddy of mine up in Canada. And he calls me, he says, the sprinklers went off in the grow room. I said, that's bad. He says, yeah, it's only one of them. He says, it's soaking the lights down. What should I do? I said, turn them off. So it's like, that's what we call TOTO, the theorem of the obvious. If they're blasting water all over it, how about hit that switch? So anyway, he said, but it's still running. I said, yeah, well, not forever, man. So anyway, he turned the thing off and, dried it out, hit it with a hair dryer, and plugged it back in. He's still using it. The thing still works. So it's like, well, that'll do. He says, is this certified for wet environments? I said, well, not by UL, but I guess by you. It seems to work okay when it's dripping wet. So it's like, wow, that's exciting. That was just crazy. He has a video of the thing. It's like, you hear him narrate it. It's like, and here's my Diva light with water spraying all over it. It's like, dude, you're doing the Nero thing. It's like, my grow room's burning down, and it's like, and I'm taking a movie. But anyway, he's a cool guy. He's like, yeah, it's been running all night this way. I guess it's probably okay. It was just fun.
That's a good one. Not bad. All right, so let's jump around. So you are dealing with, obviously, Thailand, China, the Far East, basically, Japan, you mentioned. What's the difference in how cannabis is received or being legalized in those countries versus the process you see right now in the United States?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, the United States is a great place, and that's where I'm from. I think that's where you're from. That's why we're here. It's what we do. And but it's a very new place when you think about it, a couple 100 years worth. They got recipes in Thailand that are older than the U.S. is, and most of those dessert recipes have cannabis in them. The running joke about Thailand, they call it the land of smiles because it's a very happy place. People are very chill, and they're pretty relaxed. And my buddy Sumchai says, land of smiles because, hey, man, he says, they put cannabis in half of the desserts. And after dinner, you say, I'm going to have a little bit of mango sticky rice or something. And it's like, wow, I'm kind of relaxed. They've used cannabis for, literally thousands of years over there in medicine and in cooking. And it's just another herb. It's like, we say, well, what's garlic do for Italy and Greece? It's like, well, they cook with the stuff. It's like, yeah, okay. The Thais look at cannabis. It's another plant. Hey, it does this. We've always used this. And until fairly recently, 20th century, man, anybody could have it. Anybody could grow it. You do whatever you want. So they're kind of just going back to, hey, the Americans aren't going to bother us anymore about this. Good. We can go back doing what we're doing.
Great. So do you think that, like, in the United States, obviously big pharma is an influence in trying to keep marijuana illegal, if you will. Is that not an item in the Far East?
Well, in Thailand, the Thais are interesting. It's like in China, they organize very vertically. It's like it's vertical hierarchical. Think army style. In Thailand, they organize kind of like a village. They tend to organize horizontally. It would be inconceivable in Foxconn, in Shenzhen, that, one of the girls would come stomping in from the line, covered with dust into the engineering department and say, dude, this doesn't go together, the VP. Happens all the time in BKK, seen it, been there. It's just like very horizontally organized. They tend to do that. It's an interesting cultural thing with them that they have a tendency to confer and consult, and they're more, I think, collaborative than I think we're used to. Takes a little while to do things, but once they get moving, everybody's on board. So it's interesting for them.
Not as much national division, I guess.
Right. The way they set it up over there is the GPO, the Government Pharmaceutical Organization, they're the guys who are going to be controlling all the medicinal use cannabis. They'll be growing or contracting grow all the extracts. They'll be producing all the cannabis-based medicines, which are already available and prescribable, and they're going out there. They just don't have the supply they want right now. But as far as possession of parts of the plant, as it says in the first part of the regulation, you can have any part of the cannabis or hemp plant, the leaves, the flowers, the roots, no problem. It's no longer an issue. And you can have any amount of CBD stuff that you'd like, as long as I forget what the THC level is, but it's pretty low. And that's not an issue. Anything with THC levels above a certain threshold, they say, no, that's pharmaceutical. You have to get that from someplace. I think that will probably relax as time goes on, but one piece at a time. The nice thing about it is they did it from the bottom up, very Thai, as opposed to doing it from the top down, American style. They're saying, if you want to grow it, go ahead. If it's for your use, do what you want to do. If you want to synthesize and make chemicals, leave that to the chemists.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that point of view, because a lot of our guests and a lot of CEOs and founders that we have on this show are from the United States. So it's nice to get a different viewpoint. It's very refreshing. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, they're also about to go legal in Laos, and they're basing their model on the Thai model. And the guys are working collaboratively to say, well, this is how we structured here. We should structure there. That way they can go in the future back and forth across the border with the same standards and the same specs. And I think that's probably going to be a good thing for all concerned. I think, as you can tell, I'm very pro-Thailand, but, I was actually protesting down there last time. And I got a great T-shirt. It says, we overthrew the government. All I got was this lousy shirt. But I still wear it. People are like, you serious with that? Oh, yeah, dude, I was totally there. But what's interesting about that is, they're setting it up so that people can do what they want to do without a lot of government interaction, as long as you're talking about it's a plant, like a tomato plant or an eggplant or a Thai chili. Here, it's much more pharmaceutically oriented. But then again, it's being approached differently here.
Yeah, definitely. Completely different on what you just described.
Oh, yeah.
So let's see here. Basically, we've all built companies. Like I said earlier, we all have different journeys. None of us can do it by ourselves. Is there a person or a team that helped you get to where you are now, that maybe you can share a story about how, some people that you're involved with help you grow and get to the level you're at?
Oh, no question. You can't do anything by yourself, hardly. I mean, even if you're going to if you say, hey, I'm going to go run a marathon, it's like, well, somebody had to design those sneakers, and it's like, somebody had to mold that stuff. Somebody had to teach you how to run and train and do all these things. My best ideas are generally not mine. I have some really great ideas, and you build them and they suck. You say, oh, well, it didn't work. And but we've got some really great people that I work with. My wife, Marisa, she does all of our marketing and branding and client-facing stuff. You should generally never let the engineers talk to the public, because, you ask me a question and I give you an answer. And it's like, that's not always good. It's like, hey, when will this thing be available? I don't know, end of the week, and people start ordering them. And I'm like, oh, shit, we forgot to make the molds. It's going to be 3 months. So she handles all the marketing and the branding and all that stuff, and gets the word out, about what we're doing, how we're doing it. The rest of the crew, Alan and Jacob and Victoria and Brian, it's like, they all handle their end, so I don't have to get in the middle of everything. As you would expect, we organize much like a Thai company would organize. Everybody knows how to do everything. You have your area of specialization, and this is what you do during the day. I do the electronic design. Jacob does the accounting. But then again, so can Brian, and so can Victoria, so can Marisa, so that if anybody has to pop in and take over something, it's very relaxed that way, which is kind of nice.
Sure. And what was it about the cannabis industry that attracted you when you first got started?
Oh, see, there's the thing where I got to turn on the filter, because I'd just totally tell you. What happened is this. Yeah, I've got to. What happened is last time I retired, which never works because I don't play golf and I don't care. I bought an Italian restaurant and started cooking, and it's like, this is fun, and I like to do that. And we said, hey, we should probably start growing our own herbs, and we should do this, we should do that, and we started getting into the hydroponic scene, and it's like, this is good. And then it's like, the more I looked at it, it's like the equipment that's available is just primitive. It's not that the guys that are building it, over in Shenzhen are not good at what they do, but if they're making lights and control systems for growing, it's not because they found the drive, to the spaceport, to be too far, or that designing the RF sections for Apple was just an inconvenience to drive across town. It's like, these are not the best guys. The best guys, the guys on the space program and the telecom guys, they're not our competition. So I looked at it and said, we can do a lot better than this. We are the A-team guys. We can build better stuff. and we can build it for less, and it won't break, and people will like it. Hey, why don't we do that? So I started designing lights, and we built them for all the major U.S. distros who may or may not get upset if I name them. There's only two. I've worked for them both. And built piles and piles of stuff for them. Most of one of them's catalog of electronics is mine. If you look at it, it's made in Thailand. That's us. But it's like, we can do better than this. And it's like, and why don't we? So we did, and never looked back. Like my Dava light, it's low frequency square wave, and it's been that way for 4 years. Everybody said, why do that? It's like, well, because I can run CMHs, and I can run metal halides, and I can run mercury vapor if you want. You don't. But you can do just about anything. And now everybody's starting to say, hey, low frequency square wave. I guess that's the way to do it. So it's a lot of fun. We get to build really good stuff, and the people who use it are having a blast with it.
Excellent. And like you said, you have a lot of people, nobody returns the product. It's obviously a high quality product. We have a lot of listeners that are either listening for the business point of view, they're trying to start a business or invest in the cannabis industry, or they want to actually purchase product from companies like yourself because they have an existing business. So what are some tips you would have for people that, let's just focus on people that are trying to get in the business, whether they're going to invest with someone they trust or they're going to start their own business in the cannabis industry? What are some tips you have for just a startup entrepreneur?
This is the simplest thing in the world, and nobody's willing to do it. But it makes the difference between I made a bloody fortune and I didn't. Read the specs. Just read them. If you're going to go buy a light, the light makes photons. Electricity goes in, photons come out. How many? How many dollars per micromole of photons are you paying? And any economist or business major is going to tell you, you got to know what your cost of goods sold are. And guess what the cost of goods sold are for lights? Photons. How many are you getting out of the thing in micromoles per second? And how many dollars does it cost you to buy the thing? Most expensive thing in a grow room is the lights and the air conditioning. And if you're saying, well, I'm paying $2 a micromole for my photons, and you can get it for 43 cents for something that's more reliable, that makes a huge difference. Also, if you put in a light that's going to put out 20% more light, you're going to grow more weight, salable product per square foot. Those are the two metrics to look at. What does it cost you to put the stuff in to get the light you need? In terms of, we're talking about lights. And of course, how many dollars per square foot does this facility make? If it's making more than a certain number, you're doing great. If it's making less than a certain number, you're not. It's becoming competitive. It's no, people always ask, if they're small growers, hey, you got a place I can visit? It's like, Curaleaf's not going to let you come and look at their facility. They're not going to let you into Aurora Sky to walk around with your camera. It's like the guys at Porsche aren't going to go and get a tour of the BMW Skunk Works. It's like, no, we don't want to do that. So it's going more and more high-end professional. And the thing is, for the technical products, read the specs. It makes a huge difference. If you're investing in a tech company, one of the what we call the STEM end of the business, right? If you're going to be in the science, technology, engineering, math end, you got to know, hey, what does this thing do? How does it do it? How many dollars per micromole does it cost for it? How reliable is it? Like my VC light, for example, is rated 150,000 hours. Almost every other LED out there is 50,000 hours. So wait a minute, that means this thing's going to run for 34 years, not 6. And it's like, that matters. But most of the time, guys don't read the specs. I do what I call the calculator test. If you say, oh, the efficiency is this, 2.5 micromole per joule or something, and you say, that's impressive. Well, you look at micromoles out, divide by watts in. If it's not 2.5, something wrong with that spec sheet. And I'd say 70% of them on the internet, they don't pass the sniff test. Just grab a calculator and check it.
And we can use the analogy for what you just described in a very technical way, but just for people out there. So CBD, obviously in the United States, is a ridiculous amount of momentum behind it, but there are so many brands that nobody knows what's real, what's not, right? So you need to do your research. If you're going to invest in it, how many people, I'm sure you've been approached, I'm starting my own CBD line. You want to invest in it? Or I'm starting my own CBD line. Can I?
Yeah, once a week.
Right, exactly. So whatever the product is, whether it's lights, whether it's CBD, whether it's, cannabis plants, whatever it is, you got to do your research if you're going to invest on what's real, what's not, and what's marketing BS. Would you agree with that?
Exactly that. Because when you think about it, when you come right down to it, I mean, I've got a lot of Rasta friends who look at the plant as, very differently. They look at it like the Thais do. Hey, this is put here for a reason, and we're supposed to use this for this purpose. But when it comes down to what we're doing in the United States with this plant, it's like corn. It is a chemical feedstock. You grind it, you crush it, you make isolate, you separate, you do this, you do that. You sell CBD oil, you sell THC tincture, you sell these various things. It's a chemical feedstock. And once you're talking about this like crude oil, we're saying we have to refine this plant into things, or we're going to do other things with it. It's not gardening anymore. It's chemical engineering, and you got to read the specs. What is in this CBD oil? How do we make it? What is left in terms of holdovers from some of the solvents that you use? What happens when you turn the pressure up on that water processing? Those are the things that matter. You got to look, see what's BS, what's marketing, what's real.
Correct. And let's talk exit strategy. So for entrepreneurs listening, or even for yourself, you don't have to tell us your exact exit strategy, but how important is having an exit strategy as you scale your business and realizing that there's a finish line at some point?
Well, as an investor myself, exit strategy depends on what you're trying to do. What's the goal of the business? Businesses often grow. Like, somebody throws a bunch of business seeds out in the backyard and say, hey, look, I got little businesses growing. Successful businesses don't grow. They're designed. How do you want to run this? What is the point? How long does it live? How big does it get? And what do you do with it when you say, I'm done with it, and you pick the fruit and walk away? This is what you got to decide. For some people, cannabis is a lifestyle business. This is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. I'll be successful doing this, and I'll do this for 30 years. It's like the guy who runs the bakery. It's like, hey, he likes to do that. He's going to do that until one day he retires and sells it to somebody else. Most cannabis businesses are not designed that way. They're designed to say, build it up to a certain size, and as the industry gets bigger and bigger and bigger, sell it out to somebody else. It's like if you're in agriculture, you're looking at Cargill or ADM or some of the giants who are eventually going to swallow up most of the small guys. But before you get in, you should always know how you're going to get out and why.
I agree 100%. And a lot of people don't have that exit strategy, and they get left holding the bag when the big boys do come in.
It's kind of funny. It's like this happens all the time. Every time I build a last time I had one, I sold it to a publicly traded company, and then the one before that went to another NASDAQ company. The running joke is just about every time I build a decent company, somebody walks in and says, hey, here's a big box of cash. Why don't you just leave? Just get out. Yeah, leave the computer on the desk, take the puppy, and just get out. Yeah. So I have to pick up my dogs and leave the office. It's terrible, and the dogs are traumatized.
But I think
I have to start some other thing.
Same way. Yeah, I think you're wired the same way. Is that we're addicted to the chase as opposed to the destination. So when that happens, and I've had several exits myself, but when it happens, you want what's next. You know what I mean? You want, what can we do? What's next? You're just wired that way.
There are startup guys and there are operations guys. And it's like the startup guys, they like to build it, get it running. Hey, it's operating, it's working. And now it's, okay, you want to do this for 10 more years? Nope. You bring in the operations guys who say, yeah, I live for this stuff. Startup is scary. It's like, what if it doesn't work? What if the technology fails? What if we can't get any more tantalum? So it's a better deal. I think we're both, early stage guys. We're making the transition right now from, we're moving out of startup into medium. We're moving from medium into large. It's getting interesting.
Yes, it's definitely an interesting journey. I'm having a similar journey myself with some of my assets as well, but this is about you. So let's finish up with, Greg Richter, what are your biggest excitement item in the cannabis industry and your biggest concern in the cannabis industry? And you can make it global or domestic, whatever you feel.
Well, of course, it's the same item, regulation. Here they're putting the regulations in Georgia, and yay, they're going to let us start growing in Georgia. Yay, yay, yay. Oh, but it's only for medical use, and it has to be prescribed, and it's for a very narrow range of things, and it's going to be very difficult and expensive to get the licenses, it looks like. Oh, geez, well, that's not so good. And then you look in some of the states that are going legal, like Oklahoma is an example of, wow, how to do it right. Hey, you want a license? Sure, get down to courthouse and get yourself one. It's like, and there you go. I think the less regulation that we have on this stuff, as far as the ability to do and try, the better. But I think that we do need more regulation on, hey, what is this thing that you're selling me that says CBD? What's in it? It's like we're back to the patent medicine days of 1906. It's like, I don't know what's in the jar. So what we need is regulation, more in some areas and a whole lot less in others. As far as technology goes, we've got that one pretty well covered. LEDs are replacing the gas tube lights. Having bulbs that go out every 6 months are replaced by things you replace every 30 years. The technology is marching on, and that's taking care of itself. The question is, can we organize and regulate the industry in such a way that we can be successful, people can grow, people can flourish, and they can feel safe about, I'm buying something and I know what it is.
Excellent. Mr. Greg Richter, thank you so much for taking the time. That was a lot of value in a short amount of time. We appreciate it. We'll put all your information in the show notes for your company. Everybody check out Revolution Microelectronics. Greg, thank you so much for being a guest.
Len, thanks so much. Talk to you soon, sir.
All righty. We'll see you next time on the Pot.Live podcast. Pot.Live is your destination online and the app. Yep, you can download it right now. All your digital media content, articles, podcasts, videos, memes, comedy, education, all of it found on Pot.Live.